The Konya Plain, Turkey. This region has been agricultural for 9,500 years. Almost 9,500 years ago, in the delta of the Czarszamba River, near the shore of the Paleo Lake, there was a famous proto-city Çatalhöyük. Why a proto-city? Probably because 1,000 people lived in a small space at one time, in high density. Various numbers are given, but recent research indicates that not all the houses were occupied at the same time, which puts the population at around 1,000. That's a very large number. Let me say right away that the information in the video comes from Çatalhöyük archaeological site, the Konya Archaeological Museum, and from conversation with Polish archaeologist Arkadiusz Marciniak, who has been conducting research in Çatalhöyük for a quarter of a century. One interview with Professor Marciniak has already been published on our Polish language channel, and a second will be posted soon. Let us know in the comments if we should include any of the interviews here with English dubbing. If you'd like, we'll ask the researcher for permission. Hi.
Hi.
Justyna.
And Kuba.
We are from Poland and we travel around the world searching interesting places, interesting archaeological places, interesting prehistorical places. Very important for our human identity. Today we are in Çatalhöyük, in Turkey, in Neolithic archaeological site, where, for example, Polish researchers, it's important for us, for Polish archaeologists, make excavations for 25 years. And on the display table is our Polish professor from University Adama Mickiewicza in Poznań, which makes excavations here for 25 years. And he discovered many interesting things. And ideas. So let's go to the site. Now we are in a small museum here. Çatalhöyük is, one might say, a city made of clay. They used local clay, the volcanic clay from Czarszamba River, and red clays from the Taurus Mountains. They built their houses with mud bricks, the primary material of which was the soil accumulated by the Czarszamba River, and plastered their walls with marl, left behind by the old Konya Lake. But figurines and seals, integral parts of their symbolic world, they created from local clay. As a curiosity, here is one of the seals found in Çatalhöyük. They used flint and obsidian to make tools. The best obsidian came from Bengal in eastern Turkey. They made more than just tools from obsidian. The world's oldest known mirrors were made by breaking obsidian to obtain a flat and a shiny surface. The mirrors may have been used for cosmetics applied to the face or, for example, in some rituals. The inhabitants cultivated legumes, grains and vegetables, wheat, oats, peas. They bred mainly sheep and goats. The now extinct aurochs, which occupies an essential place in the community's world of symbols and rituals, was domesticated in Çatalhöyük only in later periods. Maybe the inhabitants didn't want to turn this wild creature of symbolic value into a domesticated animal, even though it had been domesticated in other parts of Anatolia. How do we know that aurochs was important in the community's world of symbols and rituals? In Çatalhöyük, remains of ritual feasts featuring aurochs as the main course were found, and the bones from these feasts were preserved. If aurochs were eaten as a dietary supplement, a full-grown adult animal would not be killed, as its meat is tough. Young animals would be killed instead. However, a large, mature and robust aurochs is excellent for symbolic reasons. The bucranium was one of the most frequently created symbolic elements of the installation, and in one of the houses, inside some little spaces, and here famous painting, maybe the most famous paintings, very impressive paintings. The ball from Çatalhöyük. This is a painting discovered by Mellard. It depicts not only a hunt but also the harassment of an aurochs. It depicts not only men but also women. Other animals were also depicted as being harassed in this way, such as this deer. Look, a woman, not only men, woman. Notice that both are male, but pay attention to this. What does this woman intend to do with this boar? And so we moved on to the houses inhabited in Çatalhöyük. The settlement, the proto-city, consists of rectangular, flat-roofed houses with adjoining walls. The houses were built side by side, without any space between them. Roofs were used to pass from one place to another. In this sense, they functioned as a street. Entrance and exit to the houses were provided by a ladder, accessed through an opening in the roof. This opening also serves as chimney through which the smoke from the hearths and ovens is discharged. There are no windows in adjoining walls, so the only light source is this opening in the ceiling. Daily activities probably took place on the roofs. A house in Çatalhöyük was used for about 50 to 80 years. When a house reached the end of its lifespan, the walls were demolished halfway, filled in, sometimes burnt in rituals accompanied by feasts, and used as the foundation of the new house to build on it. The houses were built of mud bricks, the walls were plastered, and paintings were created on these plasters. The wall painting at Çatalhöyük were colored in red, white and black. Although green and blue pigments were observed in the settlement, neither an object painted with these colors nor a wall painting using these colors has been found yet. This brings the following question to mind. Could the inhabitants of Çatalhöyük have used these colors to paint their bodies? Çatalhöyük is famous for the fact that the community buried their dead under the floors of their houses.
Hope you are not original, but who knows?
It was inside the house, inside typical house. Here were children, women, men, and they slept here.
Okay.
It was normal for them.
Okay, I know it's normal, but let's say with skeleton, I hope was covered.
Yes, it was covered. It is only for us.
Yes.
It was covered. It was under the floor.
No under the floor. On it's
okay.
His place.
Yes. It was here, but covered. Okay. One such burial was of a woman almost 50 years old. It is interesting because a stain of blue paint was discovered near the skeleton. There was also a bone spatula in the dye. The pouch, which may have contained a blue paint, has disappeared a long time ago. The fact that no other movable or immovable finds associated with blue paint were found in Çatalhöyük may suggest that this paint could have been used for body painting. The houses had a ceremonial and utility area in one room. In the ceremonial area, paintings were placed on the walls, sometimes separated by bucrania as here. The dead were buried beneath the floors. In reconstructions, the burials are shown uncovered to give us a better idea of what they looked like. In reality, there was a plastered platform above them. The bull and deer paintings I mentioned come from the ceremonial part. In this part, for example, this painting was also discovered. Vultures and men without a head. It is under the floor. Dead someone. Vultures. People without head. And even legs, corpse and legs, and vultures. For the last 5,000 years, people have lived in class-based societies dominated by privileged. Ancient Greece was an exception. Yet life has not always been like this. For tens of thousands of years before the transition to sedentism, egalitarian hunter-gatherers were prevalent. Archaeological findings reveal an egalitarian order in Çatalhöyük, an early example of transition to sedentism. It was found here that there was very few differences in the size of the houses, the number of storage bins, and the quality and quantity of the objects found in the houses. None of the houses is different or more special than the other. The diet of the people living in the houses is similar as the houses themselves. No man, woman or child was favored. The figurines found in the houses show that elderly people were highly respected. For example, studies of skeletons show that older people ate the same food as the rest of the community and sometimes even better. It's also interesting that 80% of the people buried under the floors of houses were not genetically related. So they lived in a house with wild, sometimes terrifying paintings on the walls, such as vultures and headless people, and under the floor were bodies of people who were not genetically related. Here were some skeletons, many skeletons in one burial. Not related. People were not related. 80% of people in such burials were non-related. Not related. When a young woman was buried with a small child, it was most often not her child. An important article recently published the result of genetic studies. It shows that Çatalhöyük society was matrilocal. This is interesting because, according to classical theory, it should indicate a type of matriarchy. However, the Çatalhöyük paintings emphasize masculinity, ferocity and phallicity. At the time they were painted, no female figurines were found in the city, yet matrilocality existed. Female figurines, including the famous woman with leopards, appeared much later. While we're on the subject of leopards, everything indicates that at the time this figurine was created, leopards no longer lived in the Çatalhöyük area. At the time this painting was created too, and they were important. Let's take a closer look at this painting in one of the houses. It shows men in leopard skin loincloths who do not harass the leopard, as in the painting with the bull or deer, but clearly adore it. These beautiful bas-reliefs of leopards were also found in one of the houses. Another house. The same entrance, main entrance. Here were, of course, burials under the platform. Hands. Now, such hands are apotropaic. symbol. Maybe they were apocalyptic in Çatalhöyük. Who knows? During the excavations in the 1960s, this painting was discovered on the wall of a house dated to 6600 BC. In the upper side of the painting, you can see a figure with dots and two tips at the top. James Mellard and other scientists interpreted this figure as the Mount Hassan with its two mounts. Mount Hassan is located 130 kilometers northeast of Çatalhöyük. It's a volcano. Radiometric dating pointed that this volcano erupted in 6900 BC with a margin error of 640 years. So the painting in one of the houses can show the eruption of the Mount Hassan. The rectangular shapes below the mountain could be houses in Çatalhöyük. This is not so obvious, as some researchers argue that it is not. They rather see a resemblance to leopard fur. Considering how symbolically important leopards were to the settlement's community, one hypothesis may not exclude the other. The inhabitants of Çatalhöyük could have observed the eruption and painted it on the wall of their house, while at the same time making sure that the motif resembled the skin of a leopard. If this were the case, it would be an interesting worldview threat worth considering. And this is probably the most famous figurine from Çatalhöyük, the woman with leopards. It was discovered by James Mellard and defined as Mother of Goddess. The woman holds her hands on the heads of two leopards, which may imply control over them. Look also at this impressive figurine found in the site. The front side of the figurine depicts a pregnant woman, while the back side is almost a skeleton, with emphasized spine and ribs. It symbolizes the coexistence of life and death. The city's inhabitants, of course, possessed objects not only deeply symbolic ones. They also had ordinary things, dishes and cutlery, such as this spoon. This salt cellar has also been preserved. We were fascinated by their jewellery made of natural stones and shells. Some stones are beautifully polished trinkets, even pierced to create a necklace. Okay, let's go see a real preserved Çatalhöyük. The section discovered by Mellard is currently closed to the public. You can see up close the part discovered by Ian Hodder. All of this is incredibly impressive. Houses with the walls touching. This is a dump. Surprisingly, many female figurines were found in these dumps. Sometimes also near burials, for example, those of young women with children. Here are the burial holes. In this house, over 60 persons were buried beneath the floor, mostly genetically unrelated, and above them lived people. Burial sites are also visible in this house. It's also clear that the floor wasn't dirt, but rather a slab of some kind. The mud bricks from which the house was built and the plaster on them are clearly visible. The plaster is also clearly visible on this wall, and all this was done around 9,000 years ago. In the background you can hear the conservation work at the site. So, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to not miss other videos. And till the next time. Bye bye.
Bye.